For many years, my husband's sermons lived quietly in a cardboard box. It sat on the top shelf of a closet I rarely opened. Kind of place where you store what you love too much to part with, but cannot yet bear to face. The box was a simple thing, worn at the corners, taped too many times, with Wynn's handwriting faintly visible on the top flap. He had written only one word there in his gently slanted script: keep. For a long time, I couldn't. Grief has a way of rearranging the world. After Wynn's death, every room felt too still, as if the air itself was waiting for him to return. I could have sworn I heard him clearing his throat before a story, the way he always did. I could almost feel the warmth of his hand on the small of my back as he passed behind me in the kitchen. Our home held echoes, soft, persistent, unfinished. And the sermons inside that cardboard box were the loudest echo of all. I knew they contained his voice, not just the voice he used from the pulpit, but the voice he used when he prayed late at night, when he counseled people who carried more than they could say aloud, when he whispered tenderness over our children, when he laughed, when he doubted, when he wrestled with God in the long hours before dawn. Those sermons contained the man, the pastor, the friend, the companion, the soul I loved. But for many years, I wasn't ready to listen again. Grief is not linear. It loops, it circles, it pauses in strange places. For me, it paused at that cardboard box. Then one morning, because all turning points in grief seem to happen quietly, I felt something shift. I can't name the reason. Nothing dramatic occurred. No sign, no sudden surge of courage. It was simply time. Time to meet Wynn again, not as my husband, not as the man whose absence broke me open, but as the thinker, the pastor, the gentle spiritual guide whose words had steadied so many others. I climbed the small step stool, brought the box down, and set it on the kitchen table. Dust floated in the morning light. My hands trembled as I opened the lid. Inside were hundreds of pages, some typed on an old machine with uneven ink, others handwritten in the strong looping script I knew as well as my own breath. They smelled faintly of church basements, of wooden pews, of Sunday mornings long gone. I sat down, closed my eyes, and breathed in the memory. And then I began to read. The first sermon I opened was one I did not remember hearing. It was titled, "The Grace of Ordinary Days." Wynn began with a story about a man who felt convinced his life was insignificant, that he had never accomplished anything worthy of God's attention. The man wondered if he should travel the world, take up a new ministry, or seek some large and impressive mission that would justify his existence. Wynn wrote that he listened patiently to this man's worry, his longing for a purpose stamped in bold letters, before saying gently, maybe holiness isn't what we add to our lives, but what we notice that's already there. I stopped reading. I cried. Those words felt like Wynn was sitting across from me, leaning in with that calm, quiet certainty. They felt like the answer to a question I had been afraid to ask aloud. What do you do with a life that no longer feels recognizable? with mornings that come too early and nights that come too slowly, with the ache that reverberates through the most ordinary parts of each day. Wynn's sermon offered a truth I had forgotten. Grace isn't something we chase, it's something we uncover. It hides in small, faithful things. It hides in the people we love. It hides in the work we do, the meals we prepare, the conversations we have, the mornings we survive. It hides in sorrow as much as in joy. Grace hides in places we least expect. As I read page after page, I felt like I was meeting Wynn again, not through memory, but through revelation. I discovered a version of him that even marriage doesn't fully reveal, a man who wrestled deeply with uncertainty, a pastor who never pretended to have all the answers, a thinker who believed in God big enough to handle our questions, our contradictions, and our heartbreaks. He preached about forgiveness with a tenderness that suggested he knew how hard it really was. He preached about love as a daily discipline, not sentimental feeling. He preached about suffering with reverence, never rushing people toward closure or tidy theological explanations. He preached about hope, not as a naive optimism, but as a deliberate act of courage. And he preached to the ordinary people in the pews with a fierce, steady compassion, those who were exhausted, those who were lonely, those who were carrying their own private griefs. As I read, I understood something anew. Wynn's sermons were not relics. They were alive. They addressed the world we are living in now, a world overwhelmed by noise, hurry, distraction, division, and a profound hunger for meaning. Wynn knew how to speak to weary souls. He always had.